The kidneys transform, separate, and excrete. The kidney is the master of water, commanding the entire liquid sector of the body, thus regulating organic fluids. It opens to expel excess liquids in the form of urine and sweat, and closes to retain the necessary water in the body, therefore controlling the opening and closing of the two lower yin parts, the urethra and anus. For this reason, the classical texts state that the source of fluids is in the lungs, but its root is in the kidneys. If there's no excess Jinye liquids, the kidneys recover the clear that remains trapped in the turbid at the bladder level, vaporize it and ascend it to the upper jaw, moistening the lungs. The kidney's yang Ming Men has several functions. On one hand, it assists the spleen in transforming organic liquids, strengthening all its functions, so it can heat, mobilize, and metabolize. It is common, therefore, to find yang deficiency in the kidney, leading to spleen yang deficiency, and consequently an accumulation of fluids. On the other hand, it also warms the stomach and small intestine, so they can perform their functions. It also supplies qi to the bladder for its qi transformation function. At the bladder level, the kidneys recover, as we've seen, the clear that remains trapped in the turbid and ascend it to the lungs, which, as we know, diffuses it to the skin and phanera as wei qi. The lungs' descending qi function, su jiang, also requires reception by the kidneys yang to such an extent that without the kidneys capturing lung qi, it cannot distend, resulting in a compromise of its functions. Finally, this kidney yang assists the triple burner, San Jiao, in the transformation and excretion of organic fluids. Here, it deals with transformed organic fluids, and the pathology associated with water overflow is similar to what we've seen in the triple burner, although in this case, the edemas will be characteristically infraorbital. In Water and Pediatrics, Gérard Archange says, the essential ascent of Jinye occurs through the kidney, spleen, lung axis, which distinguishes two energetic axes, Shaoyin, heart and kidney, and Taiyin, lung and spleen. Both are responsible for most childhood pathologies, such as bronchitis, diarrhea, constipation, fever, etc. Fortunately, I believe you all are sufficiently familiar with the kidney's functions, so I'd like to comment on some details. Elisabeth Rochat de la Valette tells us that the etymology of the ideogram defining the kidney, Shen, is that of an organ that determines solidity and firmness in humans. I'll translate her words. They are the deep force, the hidden aspect of vitality, the powerful foundation arranged, the layer of emergence of the general ascent of life from the impulse of sexuality. The kidneys are a foundation, ensuring dominion over bones and marrow, the deepest layer giving the body solidity and firmness. Indeed, both nourishment and solidity depend on the kidney, thanks to its constant production of marrow, and rich marrow maintains a strong skeleton. Jean-Marc Salette adds that the kidneys have an affirming power that is exercised particularly in the lower part of the body, in the dantian, as well as in the lumbosacral area, perineum, legs, and the deep part of the body. We'll return to this concept of potency, but let's look at some of the details. Jean-Marc Espy points out that just as the lung in Chinese medicine is considered a unique organ, the kidneys are symbolically considered double, yin and yang, mother and father, and emblematically linked to water, containing the mandate given to us in Mingmen to recreate ourselves with every breath. Mingmen is not an organ, but a field of force for life. Clinically, this means that the difficulty in mutation associated in the Extraordinary Meridian playlist with the Chong Mai, if we're referred to the Zang Fu, it may reflect a problem with the transformation of the spleen, because it belongs to that center that drives peripheral transformations, Chang Fu, but also a lack of strength of the kidney qi, due to this mandate function given to the kidneys in Mingmen to create and recreate ourselves with every breath. What does this mean? That they govern our entire capacity for creation, and this isn't limited to physical procreation. It extends to the ability to create a new idea, a melody, or a work of art, for example. Therefore, although creativity finds its expression in fire, and therefore very creative people often have this typology, it requires the origin of kidney potency to emerge. So, a difficulty in mutation at the Zang Fu level can be a problem concerning the spleen, but also a lack of strength in the kidney qi. And when they suffer chronically, the kidneys may express this suffering in the form of an intense or chronic feeling of impotence in life. Let's step away from words. We associate impotence with the liver, but if we understand the deep concept of not being able to realize what one deeply feels, which is the personal mandate that gives meaning to their life, this generates a feeling of impotence, which in this case expresses chronic kidney suffering. Brigitte Lacourde states that the kidney express the potency and strength to maintain and renew the life of the Zang Fu. There's a very close relationship between the kidney and San Jiao with Jing. Both Jiaos manage Yuan Qi and therefore Jing Shen, the potency and strength for the spirit to take charge of being. Thus, the kidney is responsible for a very mysterious ebb and flow. The force of expression and the force of containment are the profound force of a being. The bodily resistance force, sexual and reproductive potency, but also the potency of their spirit, their character. The kidney subject emits a magnetism that comes from depth. Suanate refers to this when stating that the kidneys have the function of bringing force, potency. Talents and skill arise from there. Precisely when commenting on this text, Jean-Marc Salette affirms that skill is learned from ancestors, clearly inheritance from which essence comes. And je, the kidney's benchen, is responsible for making us live in a balanced and realistic way, that is, functional. Is a superior intelligence because it's concrete and has to do with our abilities and capacities in daily life. And I think that's why the kidney meridian starts at the sole of the foot, where one grounds oneself. And what about pathological symptoms you might not be familiar with? Well, perhaps that Ling Shu 47 says that the kidney corresponds to San Jiao and bladder, on the surface and inside, respectively. And it adds that the condition of the bladder and San Jiao is examined through the hair and pores of the skin. That is, the state of the hair, skin pores, and hair reflect the state of the kidney energy. And here it's worth making an important clarification. Jean-Marc specifies that although hair is related to the kidney, it is not related to the water movement of the 5 movements, or Wu Yun, nor the water agent of the Wu Xing, but only to the kidney organ, Zang. The explanation about the two different references, Wu Yun and Wu Xing, can be found in the 4th video of this playlist. It's a topic that took me time to clarify but seems fundamental as it pertains precisely to what we're discussing now, which is internal physiology. Now, in clinical practice, how do we address the specific functions of the kidney? Well, initially we should consider its Mu alarm and Shu back Shu points. The first is gallbladder 25, regarding the Shu point, whose function, defined by the diagram, is transport to offer. It's important, and even more critical in this Zang of energy reserve, to consider that it is a point that mobilizes qi and therefore also consumes it. Therefore, in patients with yin, yang or jing essence deficiency of the kidney, I advised against its puncture, as it often worsens. If what you want is to nourish the essence of the entire kidney sphere, it's best to stimulate the point on the external branch of the bladder meridian, bladder 52, which not only, as its name indicates, Zhi, Shi, corresponds to Zhi, the kidney expansion, but also with its Jing essence. The reason for this double resonance is easy to explain. Both the Jing and Benshen of the Zangfu come from anterior heaven, which seems to express this external branch of the bladder meridian, which duplicates in the back portion, the north of the human, which, as we explained in the video of the glimpses number 8, is related to the origin. To conclude, I want to remind you that the kidneys will always be affected in all severe or chronic diseases, regardless of the cause and location, since they are the instinctive and creative force that drives us to live and survive. Fatigue of their Benshen Zhi is physical, psychological, and sexual fatigue. But when it affects the kidney organ, the resulting clinic consists of alteration in the functionality of the bladder, cystitis, dysuria, turbid and dark urine, etc. Let's recall the function of enhancing bladder energy by the kidney, and this explains why, among the clinical indications of the bladder meridian points, there are virtually none that concern this viscera.